Someone's going to go for 2 and get it at some point.
It's 1:42 in the morning.
Yeah, that's all right. Number 1. Shocker. Ironton.
Man, give me the Trojans.
There we go.
Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. Along with John Bruce, my name is Dewey Dailey, as we welcome you into this week's show, episode 55 here on the podcast. And we're in a new studio, brand new studio here in downtown Chillicothe. If you've had a chance to watch the Haynes Total Healthcare Coaches Call-In show, it's the same studio as that show. I'm not sure how long we're going to be here. We do have a sign now. So we do have official overtime signage.
That way you know.
Yeah, that way you know what show it is. We still don't have any merch though. We need to get some quarter zips or maybe a shirt or something. But new studio. Not really a new studio, but a new studio for us. Yeah. RIP Studio 33.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can move some of the old stuff in here because we have some room on the table.
Well, I think Tiny Tim could come. Tiny Tim can make his trip up. I mean, it's still Christmas season, so
that is true.
Jack Skellington, maybe.
We get Joe Boo in here.
Yeah, Joe Boo makes more sense.
The Nuggets.
Yeah.
I mean, this did for fun fact. There used to be a Cleveland Guardians man cave. Kinda.
Yeah. So it's been evolved and made to where we can use it as our studio space. So we really appreciate being able to do that, and we don't know how long we're going to be in here.
Yeah, it seems like it might be a relatively
3 weeks, but
yeah, it could be a relatively temporary thing.
Stay tuned.
Yeah,
so
a lot of fun things coming here at Southern Ohio Sports Authority. All right, we can jump into the weekly headlines now. The fall sports season is officially over, and in a good way, right? The Ironton Fighting Tigers, with I believe their 3rd state title in school history. Not many schools even have state titles off the top of my head. I know Amanda has a couple.
Wheelersburg.
Yes, Wheelersburg does as well. I believe there have been a few teams that have played for them. Didn't Westfall go pretty far one year?
Westfall made it to the Final Four once.
But other than that, it doesn't seem like the Southeast is very well represented at the state stage in football. Ironton, obviously, one of the few teams that is. We mentioned Amanda as well.
One of the places that Kenneth and Carson and I were at on Friday at Nelsonville-York. They won a state title.
Isn't that what the stadium's named after? Their coach,
Dave Boston.
Yeah, Dave Boston.
Yeah.
But yes, for Ironton, it's their 3rd state title in school history. It was a 28-17 win over Liberty Center, and it's an 11-point game, but it was much more exciting than the score may lead you to believe. First state title since 1989, and would you believe? Some of the best players in terms of where they're going after high school made some of the biggest plays for the Ironton Fighting Tigers. Who would have thought, right?
And so on our TikTok, they threw the dub cam up, whatever. But some of the comments on it were like, "Oh, does Sean Terry carried you?" Most teams' best players do that in the big games, and Sean Terry was outstanding. 10 receptions, 278 yards, all-purpose. He had 3 touchdowns, including kind of the sealer, but then he really sealed the game with an interception right after it. So, I mean, he showed why he's going to go to Missouri. But he wasn't the only player making plays. He just happened to make the biggest plays, which is what you want. Josh Johnson forced a fumble. He's going to Penn State with 1:10 to play with the ball at the Ironton 33 in a 21-17 game. There's a chance that if he doesn't force that fumble and if Bryson Mullins doesn't recover it, maybe they lose that game because they're.
Seems like they were trying to lose there.
Yeah, because they just turned.
We were obviously while that was going on, we were down at North Adams, and obviously we got there a little. I think we got to North Adams around 5:30, so I think the game was still going on at that point. We're just checking updates because it kind of seemed like at one point like they're gonna win, but then it was like oh man like are they gonna win?
Yeah.
But they eventually were able to pull out and get the dub as the dub cam showed. I'm not sure how the dub cam's gonna work. It might take a little hiatus until the district tournament starts for basketball. It seems like it's kind of reserved for.
Hey, you know what?
Title
the kids
wins,
like it.
But yeah.
Hey, as long as they're not cussing on it, which I know. I do wonder. Like every time they've done it, they've been able to use it. So good job to those kids so far. For the Ironton,
do like a second take, maybe. because
maybe,
somebody
but
messed it up the first time.
it would be kind of funny to see like a real subdued one, like, yeah, let's go, guys. But also in the game, Braden Shrek was really good, 15 of 21 passing for 171 yards, 2 touchdowns, also had a rushing score. Zane Williams had a nice game running the ball. The defense played really well. It was just it was a game that didn't seem like there was any doubt. And then there was doubt, but it was very short lived because of that Josh Johnson play. And then it was a 3rd and 10 where they're borderline running the clock out, but Sean Terry broke a 67-yard touchdown run to seal the game for them. So there's a reason why he's going to Missouri, reason why Johnson's going to Penn State. There's a reason why Shrek's going to go play somewhere, undecided at this point. But these guys can play. They're really well coached. They're really disciplined. Like, to me, that's the biggest thing because we've seen teams around here, and maybe in this sport that we're covering now, where they're not the most disciplined team, and that's why they
Yeah.
don't make it as far as they could possibly make it. And Ironton, with Coach Pendleton, over the last few years has really picked up on we're going to eliminate silly penalties. We're not going to do anything dumb after plays. We're just going to play the game. And when I watched them down at Waverly this year, they're playing a game where it could have gotten kind of wild, and they just stayed in control the entire game. And it was because of just how disciplined they were. And that's why, even though there was like almost 40 penalties in the game, most of the small ones were on him. The big ones were on Harvest Prep, and that's why they moved on, and that's eventually why they became state champions.
And obviously, some of those guys now transitioning to basketball and an Ohio Valley Conference that was obviously highly contested last year. A lot of those guys going to make that tough transition, not necessarily tough transition, but for them, kind of a tough transition with how quickly you
It's
have to get into basketball. I feel like football, basketball shape, not really the same thing.
right. Well, and then like 16 weeks of just getting hit
Yeah.
every week. Your body's got to take a little bit of time. I know they're going to take a couple weeks off. I think they're going to come back for the Ironton Classic, which would be like the 21st. Like the 20th or 21st will probably be their first game. Their basketball team has scrimmaged just whoever was there.
Right.
I know Sean Terry was one of their top players last year. Everything we've heard is he's not playing this year because I think he's going to enroll
Early
early.
enroll. Yeah.
Braden Shrek is
Probably their top returner.
yeah, it's just outstanding. Ashland Lane we talked about earlier,
Yeah,
just
the freshman last year.
and they've got some, like, if they get some of these guys out, they're going to be tough and they're going to be hard nosed, and it's not a team that you really want to play against. So, yeah, so congrats again to Ironton, 3rd title, 79, 89, 24. That one always looks good. Anytime you can add numbers to your banners, it's always a good thing.
All right, we'll move on to our last 2 headlines for this week's show. We're going to talk about 2 of the better girls basketball players in the area, and one's more of an accomplishment. One is more of wow, this person is lighting up the
Yeah.
box score here to start the season. So we'll start with Unioto's Milee Smith. Right, has crossed the millennium mark, her 1,000th point early in her junior year. Did it in a big way, over 30 points, I believe, in the win over Adina last Saturday. Obviously, a lot of games left for her to play. It raises the question, is 2,000 points reachable for the junior? And given the way she's started her scoring habits this year, it seems very possible for Smith.
Well, to me, the biggest thing that could slow that down, well, injury, but also would be some of her teammates kind of evolving throughout the year. So, Maya Hamilton is slowly but surely getting healthier and healthier, and she's scoring. She's getting close to 20 a game right now. Kiera Beard just came back from an injury. She can really score it as well. Only a freshman, though. So once she gets a little more comfortable, she's probably going to be getting more shots. Charlotte Dennis is another player that they're trying to get the ball to a good bit, and she's kind of working her way into getting some confidence. Maggie Holbert. So, they've got a solid 5. They got a nice little bench as well. But, Smith's still averaging over 30 points a game so far this year. She is the 11th Sherman in school history on the girls' side to reach 1,000 points. And like I mentioned, averaging over 30 points a game. Aubrey Eblin's school record of 1,751 points is definitely within reach. So, maybe not this year, but I would say for next year, it's within reach. But if she keeps averaging 30 a game, it's hard to say that she's not going to get there. And then, with Hamilton being their only senior starter, she may be scoring even more next year. So it's been really impressive to see what she's been able to do so far. She's up to 1,020 now after she had 20 on Saturday or Sunday in a loss against Waterford that we'll talk about a little bit later as well.
And then one other player that's had an extremely hot start to the year, just a sophomore, Tylee Davis. If you watched our conference preview show, I believe we may have talked about her a little bit last week because we talked about their win over
Mhm.
Portsmouth West last week. Davis, one of the big returners from last year's team, and a reason why I picked them in the Frontier Athletic Conference this year. For Davis, once again, a sophomore. Through the first 5 games for the Indians, had a double-double in every single game. Obviously, with that goes the fact that she's averaging a double-double per game, 17 and a half points, almost 14 rebounds per game. They're off to a 4-1 start. They're at Jackson this Wednesday and at Miami Trace Saturday. So, seemingly 2 more wins for the Indians. They're off to a great start, and Tylee Davis a big reason why.
Yeah, they've got a good solid contributor in each of their top 3 grades right now, and that's why they've gotten off to a really nice start. But Davis, 13.8 rebounds per game is wild. Like that's such you know, a solid amount that to be able to score or to be able to pull down each game because some games, I know there's one game she had 10, but some games it's harder to get rebounds. Some games it's going to be a blowout. You may not play as much. So
Right.
just outstanding start for the sophomore so far. Just very impressive start.
Yep. In their top 4 scorers, all in different grade levels. So they have
Oh,
a senior, junior, freshman, and sophomore, all in their top 4 scores. I will say Kira Boyd has only played in 1 of their 5 games. She did have 12 points. So not sure what's going on there with Boyd. But even if you take out Boyd, the 5th scorer is a junior, also a junior is Boyd. So either way you look at it, their top 4 scorers consisting of a player in every grade
yeah,
level.
because
So
it's Jordan and Bledsoe, right? Yeah,
Jordan is a freshman, Bledsoe is
it's
a
a
senior.
senior.
So
Okay, yeah, and so I mean, and that's without even the Miles girls being
right,
in there. Yeah,
Kobe Miles averages 9.5 per game. They're 6
that's
tenths of a
that's
point away from having 5 players
yeah,
averaging
that's
10
a
per
that's a
game.
great balance, and that's going to make them really tough to stop in the FAC. So we'll definitely be talking or keeping an eye on that. And I know they got a big one next week. Obviously 2 big league games this week, but a really big one next week that we have discussed. There may be, I don't know. Are you going to the Buckeye playoff game?
No,
Okay, then we may be
no,
doing that game because
maybe,
that's the
yeah,
21st. I would assume they're going to move it up to try to get more
right,
people there.
yeah.
So
Well, it says 12:30 p.m. start, so
okay.
um, we'll see. All right, we can move on to the boys basketball segment of the show. We're going to recap all 3 of our live streams from last week as well. We're going to start a couple new segments actually on this show. This first one that we'll get to in a moment is unsponsored, but each week when we go over the recaps, we're going to pick one team and just kind of recap their previous week and just go over the type of week they had. And we'll get to that after we recap
Mhm.
the games that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, because
Um,
we're at this point we're trying to get to as many games as possible, but we also need to, there's some teams that have big weeks and we haven't had a chance to really focus in on them yet. So
All right, so we can start with our stream last Tuesday. An early dose of Shaction for us. We went down to Leesburg to watch the Lions. A come from behind win as Lynchburg was leading at the break, 30-29. Head coach Quentin Williams and his squad end up getting the win, 64-49. As you wrote down, it was a 38-34 lead early in the third quarter. As to begin the first couple minutes of the third quarter, very similar to the
Mhm.
first half, with Lynchburg leading the way. And then after that, I think it was like an 18-0 run
Mhm.
or something to that effect. I mean, it was an insane streak of
Well, it
points for the Lions
it was an
too.
18-0 run to end the quarter, and it may have carried over into the
Right.
fourth as
Yeah.
well. But yeah, it was in the first half. There's 14 lead changes. Of it finished with 15 between the two teams, and it was Fairfield started to make a nice little run, and then Lynchburg took a couple wild shots, and then it just, Fairfield got hot, Lynchburg got cold at the worst possible time, and that's kind of what happened in that one. So we've had almost an anti-football start, where in football we were super tight games in every one of them, and And really,
Man.
Fridays was tight, but
Friday, you guys saw a good game on Friday.
Tuesday and Saturdays were not. But in this one, Brody Smith, sophomore for Fairfield in his first career start, had 26 points, was 5 of 7 from three. Kind of humorously, as him being such a good shooter, he actually missed more free throws than he missed threes.
Yeah.
Logan McIntosh, 12 points, 5 rebounds. Quentin McIntosh came off the bench, 11 points for them. He did not miss a shot, 5 for 5 from the field, 1 for 1 from the line. Griffin Friend did a lot of what his brother Larkin did. 10 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists in his first start. And they started 3 sophomores. The Barrera kid also started and played well. Didn't do a whole lot of scoring, but played well overall. And when you're breaking in new people, it may take a little bit, and it kind of did on the defensive side, giving up 30 points in the first half. Second half, to give up 19 to really slow down the Lynchburg attack. Denver Clinton, Trevor Newhouse, and Cody Bell all had 14 points for the Mustangs, and Clinton also had 6 rebounds and 2 blocks. Bell had a really big block in that second quarter, and it kind of started a run for the Mustangs, but ultimately it ended up just being Fairfield pulling it out. I was very impressed with what I saw from Fairfield. Just, even a couple guys off the bench making plays and just doing the winning plays that they've been making for the last 2 years with Coach Quentin Williams, and that's why they've been so good, and I think that's why they'll be very good again this year.
What has he won? Like 45 games in 2 years or something to that effect?
I think it was 46-4.
Yeah,
not bad.
Oh man, what a start to a career! And all things pointing towards another 20-win season. You don't want to get too ahead of yourself, but 2-0 to start the year.
Well, and then you throw in the tournament,
right?
So
and it's a Division 7 tournament now, so seemingly the field, getting a little easier.
You got one big one down in Blue Vernon, South Webster. But other than that, I think.
But do you?
Well, we'll see.
That's the big question mark, right?
Yeah. Which
how long does South Webster remain vulnerable?
Right.
I'll have to check their schedule to maybe get an answer on that one.
I think we'll see sooner rather than later on like what's going to happen on that. But either way, they're going to be tough just because they've got guys that have won. Just they'd have to fill in some new spots and whatnot. But our studio is slowly falling apart.
Must be why that moved earlier. One of our lights moved earlier because I thought I saw, a couple of the little sound foam pieces are moving around. But Fairfield, a hot start to the year, 2-0, a 15-point opening night win over Lynchburg-Clay. Once again, a 2-0 start for the Lions. I'll let you take over this next one. I was actually in Columbus for a hockey game. Buckeyes with a 2-game sweep over the Penn State Nittany Lions, who are under 500, but hey, the Buckeyes are now 11-4-1, 15th ranked in the country. So get out.
Princeton was well under 500.
Princeton was 1-6, and they got swept the same weekend they lost to Michigan. So it was a good weekend, and the same. It was a day after the basketball team blew a 4-point lead in about 30 seconds. So it was
but they looked better.
It was they did pick up a big win over Rutgers after getting beat 50-17 in the first half by Maryland. So it's been a bit of an interesting ride for Coach Jake Diebler.
That Rutgers team has two top 10 players, top 10 recruits, and they are not very good. But so on Friday we were down in Nelsonville for Athens and Nelsonville-York. We weren't really sure what to expect in this one because Athens came in 0-2, Nelsonville came in 2-0. They had faced a different quality of opponent, but they're also big rivals, only 10 miles away from each other. Athens eventually pulls out a 56-52 victory, really sparked by Colin Chapman, a freshman. He had a go-ahead 3 with 30 seconds to play, which I believe possibly at press time could be up on our TikTok account. We'll see. It was a big-time shot with, like I said, 30 seconds left in the game. Nelsonville pushes the ball down the court and then turns it over. And really, Leo Martin, being the fastest player on the court, just dribbled around for about 15 seconds before finally getting fouled. And really, time was pretty much done at that point because he ends up hitting 2 free throws with less than a second left to seal the game. A big win for Athens, their first of the season, after they lost a blowout to Jackson, but then they lost a tight one to an improving Amanda Clear Creek team. But In this game, the Bulldogs were led by Leo Martin, 18 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. So not a bad night for the senior point guard. Easton Newsom had 9 points. Zach Mullins came off the bench with 9 points, 9 rebounds. Weston Wheatley had 8 points. Chapman ended up with 6. He hit a couple threes in the game. So it was a good game overall for Athens. They had a couple other players contribute some important minutes as well. But for Nelsonville, this is a game that I think they're probably going to be kicking themselves throughout the year on, because right now it looks like it's going to be Megs at the top of the TVC, but Nelsonville hasn't won the TVC, and I said it on the broadcast, but I can't remember the exact amount of time. But it's been quite a while, and they've got some talent, but just too many mistakes, too much foul trouble in the first half, and ultimately just unable to, hold on to their lead that they had throughout. Alec Thompson, a junior, had 18 points, 6 assists in the game. Bryant Call, a senior, 16.6 rebounds, and then Cam Sullivan, only a sophomore, with 10 points. So they've got a nice balance of sophomores through seniors. They had a really good JV team as well. But Bryant Call can really make a lot of things happen. So they have to take advantage of having him this year, because that's going to be a big hole to replace next year, because his length and ability to shoot, because he knocked down a couple of wing threes in that game as they made a little run. And then, ultimately they were not able to put away Athens, and Athens ultimately with the win.
Yeah, and you mentioned Megs. It's, and every other team has played a league game up to this point other than Megs. Now, Megs has Wellston Tuesday night, and they're at Vinton County. I believe that would be what is the 13th? That'd be Wednesday or Thursday? I think it's Thursday.
That's Friday, because we're Friday.
13
because we're Saturday, Sunday. It's 14th and 15th.
Okay, yeah. So it's, what'd you say one more time? Friday? It's the 13th?
Friday.
Okay. So at Vinton County on Friday, they continue.
And I will say,
what I was
we will discuss later on why we're not at a game like that on Friday, because we have a big reason why.
Right.
Yeah. So.
But what I was getting to is that Athens and Nelsonville, neither team plays Megs for quite a while. Megs is at Athens on January 14th, and they're home against Nelsonville on the 17th, and then they don't play again until the 11th and 14th in the same order. So obviously Athens and Nelsonville both times around the last couple teams on the league schedule for Megs. So all right, we can move on to the final game we're going to talk about. It was a big one. Fairland, an opening night win over North Adams, 48-35. It was a big game for Brody Buchanan, but really just a big team game for this Fairland Dragons program that was able to kind of just stymie a North Adams team that was really riding high after a big opening. I believe it was an opening shack.
Oh, it was a second, because they beat Manchester on Tuesday.
Right, they did beat Manchester.
Who's a good team that we'll talk about later.
But nonetheless, North Adams with a 20-point win over Eastern Brown the night before. And, really, if you look around the media, especially with us, Eastern Brown, a fairly popular choice out of the Shack 1 to win that conference, and for North Adams to not only beat Eastern Brown by 20, but do it on the road.
Yeah.
And, we were down in Eastern Brown. We've been there a few times, but especially last year, that Fairland game right before the tournament. I mean, one of the craziest atmospheres you can even think of. And really, it was kind of the same game against Fairland, just the other way around. I mean, North Adams went into Eastern Brown, just completely shut out the crowd, got the win by 20 points. Fairland does the same thing the next night to North Adams. Pre-game, we're just, we're turning it because we're on the floor. Once again, big thank you to Katie Reagan and the North Adams athletic department. One of the better, I say better, probably the best hospitality you can find in the Southeast District. Very easy to work with. They pretty much get you anything. I mean, asking us if we want drinks. I mean, it's if you're a media guy and you want somewhere to go, have a good time, watch a basketball game, North Adams is one of the better places you can go. But we're sitting on the floor and just kind of turning around and looking at the crowd like, man, this place is slammed. And it helped it was also homecoming night because, obviously a Shack doesn't have football, so they're going to do all of their homecoming stuff in the winter. But I mean, Fairland just right out of the gate. And it really seemed like after the Trevor Locko 3 at the end of the first quarter, from about I think he was right at the volleyball line. That was kind of like, it didn't
Which will
seem like
also, maybe at press time, could also be up on our
true.
TikTok. We'll see.
To me, it just didn't seem like North Adams was really ever able to get back into the game after that point.
Yeah, and it was because of what Fairland was able to do defensively, and then eventually they just I won't say stop playing because they were just passing around and dribbling and moving, but they pretty much made it to where there was no way that North Adams was going to come back in that game. Locko's 3 at the buzzer was big because it put them up, I believe, 10 after
I think it
8.
put them back up 8.
8, yeah. So put them up 8 to end the quarter, and really from there on, it was all Dragons. They never got closer than 8, so it was just Brody Buchanan was doing kind of whatever he wanted. He was he's left-handed, but he's got a really nice left to right cross for a step back, but he also can go right back across and drive it left-handed. And when you do that, he's probably going to beat you. And also, whenever he beat his man, the help side defender would have to come over and he'd just kick over to the corner. And that's where, like,
Cliff Franson.
Yeah. Cliff Franson hit
Talk
3
about a
threes.
stretch big.
Yeah.
He's lighting it up. If that's, we talked the other day about Adam Guthrie being unguardable, right? Is Brody Buchanan the Adam Guthrie of guards?
He might be.
Imagine those two on a pick and roll. I mean, what do you do?
Right.
I mean, we obviously haven't seen Adam Guthrie shoot it much, but I mean, pick and roll, what are you going to do? You're going to drop down with Guthrie, or are you going to let Buchanan shoot? Because he knocked down a couple. I think he knocked down for sure one really deep 3. I'm not sure if he made any other ones, but I mean, it's a guy that is prone to shooting 15-footers, driving to the lane, clicking out. I mean, passing it out. Obviously, Gabe Polson didn't get super involved offensively, but a good kind of just like a guy that's kind of the middleman in between passes. But, maybe we see him start to evolve his game offensively. But it's a team that just has so many guys that are capable off of passes from Buchanan. I'm not sure what Keegan Smith finished with, but I mean,
10.
you're just a great athlete. I mean, you saw him down, and we talked about it on the show or on the stream. Just one of the greatest plays this past season for us, week 7 down at Portsmouth.
Also on our TikTok.
Also, it is on our TikTok, and we already talked about Cliff Franson.
People really handled that well. Like, that was another one there.
And Trevor Locko, another guy. He obviously, minimal minutes last season with a senior heavy group they had last season. You have to step into a bigger role last night, and I think he really showed how much he has upped his game just last night alone. I mean, we talked about how he was the offensive player of the year in the Ohio Valley Conference for boys soccer. Did he finish in double digits as well?
He only had 6.
They were both 3s, weren't they?
Yeah, but to me, the biggest thing he did was he kept Jace Rothwell to only 13 on the night. He was guarding Jace Rothwell. Rothwell, man, that dude he had 2 or 3 just absurd plays in the game, and he can go inside out. He's more of a driver, kind of in the mid-range, but when the outside shooting for North Adams wasn't working, they were 2 for 15. I believe they made their last one. The outside shooting wasn't working, so he had to go downhill and get to the basket, and he still wasn't able to really get going to a huge scoring night because of what Locko was able to do defensively. Now, for North Adams, as I mentioned, Rothwell led them with 13. He also had 5 rebounds to lead them. Kind of shows how few shots there were in the game. Not a ton of shots.
Also, you got to remember
the fourth quarter there was.
Yeah, if you want to rewatch the stream, just skip to about 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, because Fairland, and all credit to him. That's what you want to do in that situation. Absolutely, just dribbled 4 minutes off the clock in the fourth quarter.
There's at least one school in the Southeast District that played in the state semifinal where they were up by like 8 or 9 in the fourth quarter and kept attacking. They lost in overtime. And I'm sitting next to college coaches that are there scouting players on the other team because they had 2 guys that went to Division I, and they're like, "Why are they shooting? There's no shot clock. Why are you shooting?" So Fairland did it to perfection because I think there's a couple of times they might have been out of layups, but in reality they weren't. They didn't want that. They were just trying to play the clock. But yeah, they were outstanding. And Cliff Franson had 11 points and 9 rebounds on the night. He had 11 and 8 in the first half. There just weren't many shots in the second half. But yeah, for North Adams, it's a tough loss because you're coming off of a high the night before,
Yeah.
but at the same time, you still have everything you want to play for in front of you and in the conference. Connor Young also had 9 points in the game, and besides Young and Rothwell, I think Brees and Schweikert had 5.
And he didn't get much. He
Yeah,
didn't
he
get
didn't
going
really get
offensively.
going. Osborne didn't get going at all, and they really
Rothwell, although only had 11, or was it
13.
13? Couple crazy layups for
Yeah,
Rothwell. I mean, I
yeah,
think they were either back-to-back possessions or like in 3 possessions. I mean, it was just a couple crazy reverse layups for him.
yeah. He's unreal. Like I know he probably didn't get a lot of talk for Shaq Player of the Year last year, but man, if there's
I figure he's gonna be up there this year. There's a lot of
yeah,
good options this year, especially when you look at the fact that there's not a Shaq 1 and Shaq 2 player of the
yeah,
year. So, in most conferences, you're looking at 7 or 8 teams. You got 10 teams to choose
yeah.
from. So
So that's going to make it a little more difficult. But man, if there's anybody, I think he just kind of makes things go for them, and he was outstanding, even in a losing effort. So I'm excited to get down there, and we've told the people at North Adams at some point they're gonna play better when we get down there.
right.
Now we had them at the Convo last year, and they played very well. So
Well, and I was gonna say we had them against Minford at home last year, didn't play very well.
mhm.
So we'll see. I did want to get to like. Do you think maybe the lack of an inside presence is something that could hurt North Adams going forward? Because especially
but it didn't.
last night,
But it didn't last year.
true. So
So,
do you think you
but
can, especially in the tournament, do you think you can go, you know, 4 or 5 games, lighten it up from 3 every night?
so to me, I think one of the things that is different is the fact that Copus was another
Copus is a
suit.
big guy
Yeah,
too. Copus
suit.
probably 6'2", I
Yeah, it
think.
was another really good option for them off the dribble and the drive and kick, which Rothwell can definitely do as well. But Rothwell was able to benefit from that as well. And so I think they will just continue to mold the team throughout the year and just get better and more comfortable in these slightly different roles. Not like really, really big roles, but like Schweikert had a really big night scoring on Friday. They've got different guys that can do it. They just, you just gotta get used to doing it. Now they got 10 days off
Yeah.
before their next game, which I'm sure they would have preferred to have 10 days off after the 20-point win and not
I
the
think they would have rather beat Eastern Brown and lost to Fairland than the other way around.
yes, I do agree with that.
I do think obviously Caleb Diatley in his first full season as
Mm.
a full time varsity player, just a couple of games into his senior year, maybe he's able to kind of
Well, and he was somebody that
turn into maybe more of a guy that you can rely on to get points on
mm,
the inside, get defensive and offensive rebounds, just have a bigger presence than
yeah.
maybe North Adams has had the last year or two.
Well, and then Carson Davis, the freshman.
Yep.
So, like, those are 2 players that I think we could see getting more minutes throughout the year. And Diatley
Jesse Kennedy, I think.
mhm,
Was it Jesse?
yeah,
He didn't play a ton, but played some meaningful minutes
mhm.
as well for North
Well,
Adams. So,
and with,
and
you know
who's Thaddeus Moore knocked down a
yeah,
3 late.
Thaddeus Moore
So,
knocked down the 3, and, they're a team that new coach trying to figure out everything together, and I think they'll be okay. Because they're still very talented when it comes basketball wise, and they play super hard. So
all right, we can go ahead and move on to one of the new segments for this week, where we just kind of highlight one team's effort. We'll do one for both the boys and the girls sides. It's going to be Circleville, the
mhm,
Tigers, this week. A few big wins. They're 3-0 on the week. 2 conference wins with W's over Liberty Union and Bloom Carroll, as well as one over a Washington Courthouse team that I think has maybe surprised some people with
mhm.
how well they have played. We'll talk about them in the preview side when we talk about the battle in the 7-4-0 coming up at Shawnee State this weekend. But on the week 3-0, I think the Bloom Carroll win is another one that stands out
Mhm.
for the Tigers.
Well, after when I watched them against Zane Trace, they did not look comfortable just sitting down and guarding. Like when Zane Trace was able to get the lead, they just kind of spread it out and then attacked, and they couldn't do anything to slow that down. Well, against Bloom Carroll, who's a team that I think a lot of people would think would have a higher ceiling than that Zane Trace team, they absolutely like just blew them out at the end of the game. Like I think they were down 5. They end up on a 7-0 run to end the game and win it. They get a big shot from Luke Klein, or I don't know why I went. It's Klein. I just blanked on the name, but Cole Nungesser had a gigantic game in that. He had
Come on,
26.
Jack Klein?
Yeah, Jack Klein. Thank
There
you.
you go.
Yeah, Jack Klein had a big 3 in that, but Nungesser was huge. He hit 2 free throws late to put that game away. Well, to win the game. But you beat him anytime you beat Bloom Carroll. It's a good
anything.
win. Yeah. So a 3-0 week. Nungesser, as I mentioned, 26 points in that game. Riley Jenkins 13. They're a tough matchup because with Jenkins and Nungesser, and then you've got Ed Kirk. You've got some really good size. Klein can stretch things out. You've got some nice athletes in Thornley, Cassidy as well. So you've got some nice athletes over there for the Tigers, and it showed in that 3-0 win. And then Nungesser was also our SOSA Pickway Ross Player of the Month.
Yep.
As well. So this week they've got Amanda Clear Creek on Tuesday, and then at Logan Elm on Saturday, which will be an afternoon game at 2:30. Which that one, I think people need to have some eyes on that one, because that one could be a really interesting game. Logan Elm started off 1-3, but they've played 3 overtime periods so far. 2 of them were in one game, but they
double overtime and a single overtime, losing in both, unfortunately.
0-2 in overtime games. So yeah, they're a team to watch for. So that one's.
But they are 0-1-2 in overtime periods.
Yeah,
that's
true.
They did tie in one. So
yeah.
All right, we can move on to the previews. A special preview segment for this week. As if you don't know, Southern Ohio Sports Authority serving as the exclusive live stream provider of the Battle in the 740 this weekend in Portsmouth. The second annual Battle in the 740 at Shawnee State University. I can't remember the arena name off the top of my head. I know it has a name at Shawnee.
We have a Shawnee student in the studio, and he
It's
just
named.
threw his hands up.
It's. I can look it up. Shawnee State Basketball Arena. It has a name.
It has the same name as like everything else does.
Talking about it, yeah. We'll have to look at it here in a minute. I'll try to get that back for you. But once again, serving as the exclusive live stream sponsor of the showcase. That's 12 games in 2 days, 7 on Saturday, as well as 5 on Sunday. Both myself, John Bruce, Kenneth Hay, and I'm blanking on. I know it's Malachi. From South Webster, going to be doing a couple of games for us as well. So should be a fun weekend down at Shawnee State. But a lot of games to preview for us. And we're ultimately going to spend the entire boys and girls preview sections just previewing the games coming up. So kicks off early Saturday morning at an 11 a.m. start with Notre Dame and Patriot Prep. Notre Dame 2-0 on the year with wins over Valley and Sims Valley, so 2-0 over teams with Valleys in their name for the Titans. And Patriot Prep off to a 1-0 start with a lot of scoring throughout for the I can't remember what the Patriot Prep mascot is, but for them,
the Patriots at the Waller Gymnasium.
Yeah, at the Waller Gymnasium. There we go.
Yeah, I knew it was a name of everything else down there. There's just a bunch of Waller stuff down there. So. But yeah, so this one should be an interesting one to start. Like, Patriot Prep played the Urban Academy for Scholars in their first game. So who knows on the quality of opponents that they have played.
Yeah.
The
Eagles. There you go. What'd you say, the Patriots? Yeah. For the Patriot Prep Academy Eagles will kick things off for us this Saturday.
Yeah, so Notre Dame will come in. I think it's going to be a tough one. Who knows at this point. But Patriot Prep 13-9 last season. They're 1-0. Mason Seward 20 points a game. Deshaun Crawford 14. Cameron Thomas 13 points, 10 rebounds, and then Benjamin Williams had 12 points per game as well in their one game. So I mean, they scored some points. They scored 70 in their first one. So I'm guessing they're a team that wants to get up and down the court. Now for Notre Dame, you lose Connie Thomas as he transfers to Portsmouth. He was one of their first team All-League members last year as a sophomore, but you've gotten a really good start to this year with those wins over a good Valley team and then a Sims Valley team that I think we thought was, has a chance to be really good as well. So Landon Barbaridis.
There you go.
Yeah, I think I might just go with Landon.
And I thought it's Barbaridis, isn't it?
I think.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I think I typed
Might
it.
have to ask Mr. Peyton what
Yes.
it is, since he's
Yeah.
pretty easy. He's pretty
Yes.
helpful for us for Notre Dame athletic
Right.
information.
And then you got Aaron Bradford, an outstanding defender, and then Miles Phillips, another really good player. Those three all were SOC 3 member
SOC
one
There you go.
members
Wrong
last
way.
season. So it's going to be an interesting start for them. 11 a.m.
Early.
It's easier for them because it's right down the road.
That'll
But
be a good morning and welcome into the Waller Gymnasium
Yes.
intro on the stream. It's not too often you start off. I don't think we've done too many games in the AM. I know the couple of the D3 girls tournaments at Waverly, 12 a.m. tip,
Yeah.
but we go 12 p.m.
tip.
tip, but we go live at 11, 50 or 55. So, all
Yeah.
right, we can move on to the next game unless you had anything.
Well, no, I was just going to say, like, we're not going to go as in depth as we normally would on
There's too many games.
Yeah, because we want to make sure we're highlighting these games for you in case you decide, hey, I want to watch that game. In case you don't know, maybe you don't know much about Notre Dame or Patriot Prep, and you see, oh, Patriot Prep scores 70 points a game. Let's go watch them. But also, it's one ticket is good per day.
Yep.
So
if you wanted to watch 12 games, you'd have to buy 2 tickets.
Yeah, but if you want to watch 7 on the first day and you don't want to listen to all of us in this room and then Malachi as well, you got to show up.
Right.
But if not, if you want to watch each and one of them, we're going to have different games for each one on the on YouTube.
And they're already on the YouTube page. There's a specific playlist for the Battle on the 740. They all have the same thumbnail, but the titles are different and they're in order from when the games are going to happen. And obviously, those will all be on demand once the streams are over. So you can go
and
back
I think
and watch.
on the Event of Sports site will also have, we'll send it to them as well.
Yeah, they'll have all the links, maybe just the link to the playlist or maybe the individual links to each video. So we can move on to the next game on Saturday. And all of these are boys games except for one on Saturday and one on Sunday. The 12:30 game on Saturday is Piketon and Manchester. So Bo Henry and the Red Streaks off to a 1-3 start to the year, winless in the Sauter Valley Conference. Now, they are home against Paint Valley and Huntington this week prior to the Battle in the 740 this Saturday. So potentially some winnable games in the conference for the Red Streaks. And then for Manchester, right, it's one of the teams we talked about. Specifically, me picked in the Shack 2 to win that conference. It was a lopsided loss to North Adams to begin league play.
It was a 15-0 run in the game for North.
It was.
Yeah, but still a 15-point loss.
And also
a 15-point loss.
And also a 2-point loss to Joby Stewart and the Fayetteville Perry Rockets. So that was a tough Shack 2 loss for the Greyhounds, especially for me, who and 2-point loss. It's hard to get upset about that. I still am sticking with
a 3 at the buzzer too.
I'm still sticking with my Manchester pick in the Shack 2. But Parker Hayslip has been big for the Greyhounds. And for Manchester, they take on Eastern and Ripley in Shack play prior to this Saturday. So hopefully 2 league wins for the Greyhounds before they get going against the Red Streaks at 12:30 on Saturday.
The Shack schedule makers did not do them any favors at all by throwing them with North Adams, Fayetteville, and Eastern Brown to start. No. Now they should probably get right a little bit against Ripley, but Ripley played Fairfield fairly tight. I believe it was within 15 points. So, yeah, it's Parker Hayslip's been really good. It should be a good matchup with him and Trevor Shanks from Piketon, who's had a nice start to his junior year as well. Piketon lost a couple of solid contributors to other schools and kind of are having some people fill in some new spots. So I think by the second half of the year, they could be a dangerous team. But the size advantage that they're going to have with Bo Henry at 6'6" inside is going to be pretty big in all 3 of those games this week. So be interested to see how they do. So there's a chance Piketon goes 3-0 this week, but there's also a chance
to get him back in the 500.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it could be interesting, but either way, I think this will be a good game. 2 well-coached teams as well. Now, our next game is 2 teams not within the area, which is at 2:00. It's Walnut Ridge against the Huntington Highlanders. I wonder if they match this up based purely on the Scottishness of the team names of the Walnut Ridge Scots taking on the Huntington Highlanders. Now, just going to go through this real quick, but Walnut Ridge looks like they've got some nice athletes. Marquise Lucas, a 6'2 junior, 17 points a game. Roman Crosby, a 6'5 senior, 12 points a game. Dion Johnson, a 6'3 sophomore, 10.5 points, 5.5 assists per game. So not bad start to his sophomore year. They've played 2 really tight games so far. I believe it was Walnut Hills and Aiken. So they've played some really good programs as well as what they have. For Huntington, they went 17-9 last year. They lost in the state semifinals. Returning this year, they haven't played yet. That may have changed tonight, but they hadn't played as of press time for us. Vontae Crawford, a senior, 12.2 points a game. Tavion Wilson, a junior, 9.6 points a game, and Tavon Chandler, and a senior, with 8 points a game as well. So they have. That's their opener?
Yeah, that'll be their opener, Walnut
Yeah.
Ridge.
Yeah, so should be fun. I watched Huntington play last year. I believe it was Ironton, and ended up beating them over at the Ironton Classic. So they've got some nice players as well. So it should be a fun matchup. At the very least, should be an up and down game for sure. So that's our 2:00 game. The 3:30 game, a new addition to the lineup, which was the New Hope Christian Academy Statesmen at 2-0, taking on the Fairfield Union Falcons at 1-1. The Statesmen come in. I watched them against a Wellston team that is improving throughout. Xander Rink, like these are all seniors, but Xander Rink was unbelievable in that game over at St. Trace at the Tip-Off Classic. A 6'2 senior that can jump out of the gym and do a lot of different things. Tyler Cook hit 6 threes in that game. I believe he was 6 for 10 from 3. And then Hunter Kavanaugh, who had 14 points and 7 assists in that game. So they're a team that can fill it up in a variety of ways. They also can, attack you in different ways. They can really shoot it. Should be an interesting matchup. I think Fairfield Union is going to be the best team they've played so far, who's going to come in at 1-1. Super young team, very well coached. They almost upset Megs if it wasn't for, let's be honest, an atrocious third quarter in that game where it was, I believe it was a 1-point game at the half, and then they were down like 18 going into the fourth, and they got it down to 2. They may have gotten it down to 1, but they were, very competitive in that game. They had 9 different players score. They were led by Asa Klein, who's only a freshman. He had 8 points in that game. So they had a variety of different guys that did some scoring. Keegan Arnett, Isaiah DeLong, Hunter Clark are just some players to look for as well. So they're a team that I'm excited to get to see them in person, because what I've seen of them has just kind of been on some streaming stuff, but it's always more fun to see a team in person to be able to really be able to judge on some things as well.
Oh, sorry. I was looking up. Walnut Ridge has one of the cooler logos.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you saw when I pulled it up, but I mean, I'm not going to put it on the podcast or anything, but like Walnut Ridge, if you want to see a cool logo, look up the Scouts logo.
Yeah, I saw it too close.
You saw it
too close.
Why is that?
To Unioto lost to the 26-1 year.
Oh yeah, I knew
in
that.
the regionals,
that.
because they were definitely division.
Was it Milee Harrison?
Yeah, they're definitely a Division 2 team. They were Division 2 for 8 months ever, and then they were like 300 boys above it the next year. But yeah, this is
all right. We can go ahead and move on to another game.
Same seat was probably not happy about that, because this is where Coach sits.
Yeah.
So.
We can go ahead and move on to our next game. This one's at 5 p.m. on Saturday. Also, one of those games that doesn't have a team from our area, but man, if there's a game you want to get out and see this weekend, and if you can't see, once again, it'll be live on our YouTube page. It's Kettering Altar and Ashland Blazer. I mean, this should be a good game.
Yeah, Alder was the Division 2 state champions last year, went 23-7. 2-2 start to this year. They just reload. RJ Greer was their leading scorer last year. He's back, 18 points a game. Brady Connor was a big player last year as well, 13.5 points a game so far. They play an outstanding schedule, so they're going to have some losses, but it doesn't matter because they are just an outstanding team overall. They also have Grant Guess from Miami Trace had moved over there, so he gets some minutes for them as well. So get a chance to get eyes on him to see how he's doing over there. They take on the Ashland Paul Blazer Tomcats on the boys' side. The Tomcats went 23-11 last year, reached the state Sweet 16. They are 0-2 to start their season, but they're another one that just they play really tough opponents throughout the year, and that's why they end up getting to that Sweet 16, which they play at. I don't know if you know this, the how Kentucky does their schedule or their tournament is kind of wild because you play until you get to the Sweet 16. At the Sweet 16, they play at Rupp Arena.
Oh, really?
I believe it's you play 4 games in 3 days to win the championship. So like you
So
play
which two are on the same day?
semi and final.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, so I don't know because the team they lost to last year in that Sweet 16 was the team that ultimately
Won the whole thing.
won the whole thing. So, and I looked at their schedule and saw that as well. So that one should be fun, no matter what. Then we've got in between there, we've got the Ashland Blazer girls taking on the Fairland girls, which we'll talk about a little bit coming up on the girls segment as well. And then we got one more on Saturday, which is the Fairland Dragons and Eastern Brown Warriors heading up against each other at 8 o'clock on Saturday. We just saw Fairland the other day. I was really impressed.
Well, remember what I said at the end of the broadcast, since North Adams beat Eastern Brown by 20 and Fairland beat North Adams by, what was it, 13?
Yeah,
They obviously have to beat Eastern Brown by 30, right? I mean,
33.
that's how it works.
That's the line.
That's always, 32 and a half is the line for this weekend. But no, not really, right? Like this is a Fairland team that has played one game this season. They came out, looked really, really strong. And it's an Eastern Brown team who maybe didn't have their best performance, especially from beyond the arc. As we've talked about, it seems like the Shack just overall as a conference tends to be not more focused, but their tendencies are more focused on scoring from the outside. At least that's what it's been since I've been covering the Shack. So, for Eastern Brown, they've had some time to look over film maybe from that game. Obviously, if they've checked out any film or even our broadcast from Saturday, they've seen a league opponent go up against Fairland. So, they a really good coach and Rob Buechler. They could have a game plan going in to this Saturday. And, I don't, we're not picking this game, obviously, but I think it would be crazy to not say that Fairland might be the favorite heading into this game. But Eastern Brown still a team that we hold to a high regard. Obviously, you picked them to win the Shack 1. Still a really good ball club. Hard to judge a team just off of one loss.
Yes, but
But also hard to judge a team just off of one win.
Yeah,
Fairland.
but they look good. But yeah, it's a strange matchup in a way because this is a Eastern team that we've talked about their ability to shoot before. They're shooting 18% from 3-point range and only 43% from the free throw line so far. Those got to change. 33 or 36% from the field through their first 2 games. So they have not shot the ball well at all. Grady Barber's really been the only one that's done much right now. He's averaging 15 points a game and 8 rebounds, but the upperclassmen aren't contributing as much as Bryce Murphy 6.5 points a game, so he's done well. Cade Walkup, they got to get more than 5 points a game out of him. Drew Edmiston only 2 points a game. Braxton Vance 2.5 points a game. So these guys need to be able to step up their game to be able to compete against this Fairland team, because if not, Fairland will do something similar to what they did against North Adams. But I do think Eastern has a little more of an inside presence to where they will be able to attack on the inside a little bit more and then build from the outside from there. So I'm interested in this one. I think that Brady Buchanan is a matchup nightmare for whoever's going to guard him at any point. And it really, I don't know if I said it on the broadcast the other day, but even though they returned 2 starters because Keegan Smith was back too, you return the point guard. That's going to make you really good because that's Fairland.
Point guard and a big guy are the 2 most impactful guys to bring back.
Yeah, because
and they're doing both essentially. If you talk, obviously Cliff Franson is a little new. I'm not sure if he got a lot of minutes last year, but obviously Keegan Smith is back for them. and as you mentioned, Buchanan as well.
Yeah, and then Locale was playing a little bit late in the year.
Laco, come on, man, you're doing what I did.
I know. I'm sorry. But yeah, it's a game where I don't think Eastern has anyone to guard Brody Buchanan. They may not try. They may just go zone. We'll see.
See if they can shoot out of it.
Yeah, and then I also don't know if Fairland has anyone to guard Grady Barber. So should be a fun matchup. I think it's going to be interesting, especially if the teams can come in a little fresher. So maybe we'll see if that has any impact at all. But for Eastern, they do play on Friday. I'm not going to make a judgment on it, but it's at West Union, so they should be okay.
Yeah. West Union girls not doing too bad
No.
to start the year. Definitely flying under the radar. But we might be talking about what are West Union? I was going to say the Jets,
Dragons.
the Dragons. Yeah, the Dragons. All right, we can go ahead and move on to Sunday games. 4 games, 4 boys games on Sunday, along with a girls game that actually will kick off the day. But we'll talk about that one here in a minute. The first boys game on Sunday, Minford and Hilliard Davidson. For the Falcons, that'll be their first game, or excuse me, that'll be their second game of the year. They are at Oak Hill this Tuesday. The big three coming back for head coach Josh Shoemaker and the Falcons. Obviously, Miles Montgomery, Bennett Kaiser, Jackson Shoemaker. Those are the 3 guys you think about right now. You lose Troy Rhodes, you lose Jeff Pika. Those were kind of the 2 other starters for them coming back. Other than those big 3 guys, Cade Glockner, Ethan Cordell, Gavin Downey, those are really the only other guys that got minutes on the team last year. So you got to figure there's going to be a few new faces for the Falcons this season.
Yeah, now the big thing for me is I've heard they looked very good so far in their scrimmage season, which came after state runner-up in soccer. So, I mean, it sounds like they have a little more depth, and maybe it's just depth of guys that can contribute just a little. Because, last year it seemed like when they went to the bench, they weren't getting a whole lot unless Glockner was able to knock down a couple shots. But now maybe if those other guys, and where Jackson Shoemaker missed a lot of the preseason. So if he missed a lot of the preseason, these guys had to fill into new spots in anyway. So it should make it an interesting dynamic for Minford. Now, this Hilliard Davidson team last year, when I saw them against Logan Elm, it was when Logan Elm was really struggling early in the season. It was an ugly game. It was over at Logan, and they just absolutely shot the lights out. And if Minford tries to speed them up, it could be bad in a way, because Hilliard Davidson is going to have a variety of guys that can handle the ball. And when you have a variety of guys that handle the ball, you don't typically get sped up. Now, if Hilliard Davidson doesn't shoot the ball very well, the matchups are going to be a little, tough for them, because if I recall right, they didn't have a whole lot of size from last year. So it could be a big day for Bennett Kaiser, or, like we will see, from, with Bennett Kaiser, but you'll also see from Miles Montgomery, who I believe on Tuesday should probably break the.
Yeah, should have been last week, but their game with South Point was pushed back. Hopefully we still see South Point.
Yeah.
This Saturday, or excuse me, this Sunday. I'm not sure if that game is in any kind of doubt. I haven't heard anything yet. But yeah, I mean, this is a Davidson team once again. They're 1-1 this year. A win over Northridge, a loss to Olentangy Orange. They're at Dublin Jerome Tuesday, at Hilliard Bradley later in the week as well. Did you go over their last season, their record last year at all?
No.
Okay. 9-13 last year for, I believe, the Wildcats is what Hilliard Davidson is. One of the cooler logos as well. A lot of the Derby has a cool logo too. The 2 HD schools. But wins over Logan Elm, as well as.
No, don't throw it. Don't throw it. Just walk it in. We got a special guest, Kenneth Hay. Good job,
I had to
Kenneth.
bring me a water. I was dying over here.
Yeah.
Kenneth's going to be on a few games. I think 4 games is what we picked out because I'm doing 6 and he's doing 4, and then Malachi
Malachi's
is doing
doing
2, so that equals 12. But for Hilliard
math.
Davidson, thank you. Hilliard Davidson 9-13 last year, but a decisive win over Logan Elm and a win over a Miami Trace team that won 19 games, won the FAC. So I think you kind of got to look at that 9-13 record with
they're playing a Division
a bit of
Division One
grain
schedule.
of salt. So
now I look at what Minford did last year down at the same event. They, I believe, lost in overtime to another good Division One school. So I mean,
New Albany, or just Albany.
It'd be New Albany, but yeah. So they're a team that they want to step up to the task of a tough schedule, and we'll see what they can do against Hilliard Davidson early in the day, right after their girls play. Now, I will say, South Point did play tonight, so I would guess that
they did. Play, what was the final there?
50-48 over Portsmouth.
50-48.
South Point.
50, 50, a 2-point win. Yeah.
Pointers.
All right. A big. Okay, so maybe South Point, because obviously Portsmouth graduated a lot, but you had Connie Thomas coming over, and you had Malachi Loper returning. So obviously we talked about Henshaw, or I believe it Hanshaw. And then I can't remember the younger kid that I had talked about prior. Actually, I can pull it up.
Well, you got a little time because we got that. That's our last thing we're going to talk about.
I know. So it was OVC. OVC I talked about for South Point. Devon Lewis. Looked really good. I'm not even sure if he's still at South Point, but if he is, looked really good in JV last season. So he presumably would have to step into some kind of role for the Pointers this year. So, all right, we can go ahead and move on to Jackson and Lakewood. We've already talked about Jackson, one of the bigger junior classes coming back for head coach Max Moreau and the Ironmen, Stephen Jenkins, Charlie Woodard, Ryan Simons, Bodie Wolford, and Jax Carroll, Garrett Legg. One of those Piketon transfers coming over. Big impact player. Max Moreau spoke highly of him when he jumped in onto the coach's call-in line. I believe last Friday was when he was on. So, and a big one for Jackson the night prior as they host Miami Trace. According to me, presumably the top 2 teams in the FAC, but you still have Hillsboro, and it seems like Chillicothe is more than capable of taking down some of these top teams in the FAC. So, we will get our first look at Jackson this Sunday for Lakewood. 6-17 last season for them.
Yeah, and they play in a good league, but at the same time, I think this is a game where Jackson probably feels like if they play well, they should win. They seemingly have gotten off to a nice start. They blew out that Athens team that we saw on live stream last week win a game and beat them, I believe it was 60-30. So it wasn't a particularly close game as well. So this is a game, to me, this is one where just looking at the numbers and everything is the only one that looks like it may be slightly, top heavy one way or the other. So I'm interested to see how Garrett Legg mixes in with that unit over at Jackson. So it should be a fun one. Our next one after that, 5:00 on Sunday, Wheelersburg versus Harvest Prep. Wheelersburg last year, 20-5, district runner-up. Harvest Prep, state runner-up last year in Division 3. So this was a rematch from the event last year where Harvest Prep won that game 67-58. And at that point, it was that game when I was like, uh-oh, Wheelersburg's good. Like, they were, you could tell because they were leading later in that game, and then Harvest Prep was able to pull away. But Harvest Prep returns 3 starters back, Ephraim Campbell, Brandon Roddy, Khalil Daniels. So they're going to be really tough. They're always well coached on the hardwood. Maybe not the gridiron, but they are much more disciplined during basketball season, and that's what makes them a state contender each year. Now for Wheelersburg, they're going to return Braylon Rucker, Landon McGraw, Hunter Bivens, a variety of other players as well. Kenyon Evans is another one who I knew I'd remember it eventually. That was who I asked about earlier, and I just couldn't remember.
Big one-handed catch.
Yeah, earlier this year. So, yeah, they're a team that they played a lot of underclassmen last year. You lose Lattimore. Obviously, that's your big time scorer, but we'll see, have they grown together as they're going to be juniors? And this is a huge, huge test for them on Sunday at 5 o'clock.
What?
I thought you were going to talk about the next
Oh,
game.
okay. I can move
Come
on to the
Let's
last
go.
game.
I'm going.
The final boys game for us for the showcase. You leaving?
Yeah.
Okay. The final game for the showcase is John Bruce exits the studio, presumably going to do something. It's next, or I just have completely lost everything. 6:30, the final game on Sunday, Washington Courthouse and South Point. It's a Washington Courthouse team. They're off to a 3-2 start through their first 5 games, led by junior Noah Haithcock, 17 points per game, along with 9 rebounds per game. Justin Everhart averaging 10 points per game, as well as Roman Chechevsky, a senior, 9.5 points and 5 rebounds per game. Once again, they're off to a 3-2 start in that very, very competitive Frontier Athletic Conference. They're at McLean on Friday, so presumably the 4th win for Washington Courthouse. As McLean seems to kind of be the odd man out in the FAC as of now. Obviously, Jared Haynes, you expect him to get them going in the right direction.
Start, though, so.
But
against much smaller schools.
Right. And the FAC this year just seems to be very, very solid all throughout. I mean, we're talking about Chillicothe and Courthouse maybe being the 4th and 5th best teams. And I mean, they seem like they're pretty good to start the year. And then South Point, don't know a whole lot about them other than the fact that they're 1-1, a loss to Bishop Reedy and a win at Portsmouth Monday night. Once again, Hanshaw was a big guy coming back for them, but really, really gutted from graduation last year. Maybe Devon Lewis is playing for them.
Right.
I've said it a ton, looked good in JV last year. So if he's still there, I would expect him to have stepped into a much more important role for, I believe Travis Wise is still down there. So regardless of who they have playing, I mean, they're going to have good coaching for the Pointers. I mean, you don't win.
Yeah, you're not state coach of the year on accident.
Right. So, I think Courthouse and South Point, a very, a matchup of underrated teams to round out the battle in the 7-4 this year.
Yeah, I think it should be a good, a well-balanced matchup in that one for sure. So I'm excited for all 12 of these games, and I look forward to the challenge of trying to do color on all 12. Probably, I'm not going to say I will. Like, I'm just going to throw it out there. Like, there's a chance I'm not going to be able to, but
that's a lot.
Yeah, like
2014.
I don't have to do as much on the color as you guys do. It's just kind of just watching and judging. But that 7 on the first day is going to be rough. But you know what? It should be fun. I'm excited that we get the opportunity and we get to go down and should be fun. So make sure you check out whenever you can. If you're not going to go in person, we will have all of them. As we said, they're going to be up on our YouTube page as long as everything goes according to plan, which we're going to test out on Friday. So.
Right. We're going, and the reason we're not doing any other games this week, specifically Friday, is because we're taking all of our equipment and setting down a day before. So Saturday we just show up, just plug and play, ready to go. So
so that way we don't have to
run into any issues on Saturday, especially at 11 a.m.
Usually when we go to games, we get there an hour and a half at least before the varsity game, sometimes 2 hours. Like football, we get there 2 hours early. So getting there at 9 on Saturday would make that an even longer day. So if we get there at 10:15, makes it a little more manageable knowing that we're already set up. So we appreciate the fact that we're going to be able to get in there the day before and try to get set up. So looking forward to this event. Should be fun. Get to see some really good local teams and get to see some really good teams from outside the area as well.
Right.
So which we don't get a chance to do a lot because we're covering our local teams. Right. So sometimes, because I always go to the state tournament over in Dayton, and sometimes I have no idea what's going on with these teams because I still want to follow our teams along the way as well. So some other games to watch for this week, which we'll talk about our new segment in just a minute after this. But Tuesday, I'm going to be at Southeastern at Unioto. Southeastern's gotten off to a 4-0 start. This will be the best team they've played so far, but Unioto has their teams that they have beaten have combined 0 wins as well. So it's not like they have played, great teams that they have beaten so far. Western at Valley, I think that one's an interesting one just because, Western, I think we thought was going to be better than what they ended up being last year. They returned much of the same team. Valley is replacing some pieces, but, have some nice pieces as well. Logan Elm at Hamilton Township. Hamilton Township has one of the top players in the MSL. Logan Elm, they've got to beat someone decent at some point. So I think this could be on Tuesday. Thursday, Portsmouth at Chesapeake. It'll be interesting to see where Portsmouth's at. Chesapeake, we have high expectations for. Gallia Academy at Colgrove. Gallia didn't get to play their first league game. Colgrove lost to Fairland tonight. So, we'll see on that one. Friday, Zane Trace at Southeastern. Once again, Southeastern sure up 4-0, could be 5-0 coming into that one. Zane Trace has gotten off to a great start. They are 4-0 and will more than likely be 5-0 going into that one as well. So then Unioto at Westfall, Miami Trace at Jackson, the big one that we talked about in the FAC. Hillsboro at Chillicothe, another big one in the FAC. After how Chillicothe played Warren on Saturday, I think that's going to be a team to really keep an eye out on. Eastern Pike at Green, and then Meggs at Benton County. That one could be a sneaky good one because Cobra Sharp really good for Benton County, and I know Meggs has had some issues at the point guard spot to start, although I believe he came back against Gallia on Saturday. And then Saturday night, we've got Waverly at Western in a big Pike County matchup, Circleville at Logan Elm during the day, and then Lynchburg at Peebles in what could be a nice mid-range of the Shack matchup as well.
You didn't have it on there, but Tuesday, Hillsboro Waverly is kind of
Okay.
an interesting one, I think, as well. So, we're going to introduce the first half of our new segment. This is powered by Views Gym. You can check them out in Kingston, Ohio, one of the newer gyms, 24-hour facility. Once again, Views Gym. Should have a graphic going out hopefully sometime tonight if I'm able to scrounge something up.
If you've ever played basketball in Kingston, Ohio, you've probably played at the facility where the Views Gym is at.
Okay,
Yeah.
now
It's a beautiful facility. They've done a great job of renovating everything, and like you mentioned, it's 24 hours gym and
open right now.
yeah,
10:42,
open right now and
10:42 p.m.
yeah, and
But
27 seconds.
But essentially, what it's going to be, I'm not sure. I think it might just be called Quick Picks, Quick Picks powered by Views Gym.
Yeah.
We're going to pick 5 boys games and 5 girls games each week and pick the winners. And we're going to keep track of our records in those. You guys did something similar to it for football pretty much every year up until last year.
Yeah, this year I powered it most of the time. But I think Brock might have won the last one. I'm
No,
not
you
sure.
did win the last one. They did.
And they just didn't.
Yeah,
post
a couple
it.
years ago you won, and then this year they didn't do it. So
Yeah,
we're gonna start doing it.
I use Fantastic 50 a lot on that.
Hey.
That was. I mean, because it was like
everybody could have used it.
I don't know about these teams, so I'm not going to just pick because this team's better. And
Right.
it typically was that team was better anyway. So
All right, so we're going to choose 5 games from. We're not going to pick any of the games we're going to be calling. I think we're going to try to keep it that way throughout the season. So 10 games a week, 5 boys, 5 girls. This week it'll be Portsmouth at Chesapeake, Miami Trace at Jackson, Hillsboro at Chillicothe, Waverly at Western, and Circleville at Logan Elm. So do you want to do game by game, or do you just want you to give your 5 and then me to give my 5? Okay.
And then if it's bad, then we'll do a 5 at once.
Okay, so Portsmouth at Chesapeake. So obviously this is a Portsmouth team under a new head coach. Connie Thomas, a transfer in, and Malachi Loper returning, as well as a few others. And then it's a Chesapeake team. A lot of guys coming back for them. Maddox Casey, most notably. There was one other player that I cannot think of off the top of my head. Caden Perkins is coming back. Philip Thacker, another guy as well. But Casey and Perkins both were all OVC selections a season ago. So who are you going with for this one?
I'm going to take the home team. I'm going to go Chesapeake.
Yep, me too.
Yeah, so Moving on to the FAC matchup, which is Miami Trace at Jackson, both off to undefeated starts so far this year. Both played tight games with Logan Elm. Miami Trace has a significant size advantage, even though Garrett Legg brings some good size to um, Jackson. But with Guthrie, it is a large size advantage there. But Jackson also has it ends up being a tough matchup for Guthrie on who he's going to guard on the defensive side. Can Jackson shoot them out of the zone? Can this just I think it's just a really interesting matchup of just ways the teams want to play. So who do you got in this one?
I, I think I gotta pick Jackson. Right, I picked him to win the FAC. I think in terms of varsity playing experience, they probably have the overall upper hand. Right, it's a lot of good athletes for Miami Trace, but a lot of guys that are in their first year of true varsity basketball experience. Um, so I'm going to go with Jackson. That big junior class coming back. Max Moreau spoke very highly of them. Ben Ackley's obviously done the same for his group. Jackson gets Garrett Legg coming in. It's in Jackson. I'm not sure um, how much the crowd affects the game in Jackson because we've never actually been there for a home
Right.
Jackson game. We've only been
We've been there
there
for multiple
for a
games.
couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been down there for a couple. They're actually both sectional finals, I
Yeah.
believe, just different years. So I think in this one, even though I think Miami Trace looked really good the other night, but I'm gonna go with Jackson.
Okay. I'm going Miami Trace.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for the powered by. I'm going to take advantage of Adam Guthrie inside. I think Sky Sawyer's, Trey Robinette can really do some things on the outside that'll make them tough to stop for Jackson. But I think it's going to be a really good game either way. I think it's a game that I kind of wish that we may swing over to Jackson and just go watch.
I think that maybe we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. It's
So it
not
depends how really we get down and away from Shawnee
right.
State Friday night. So,
But either way, that should be a big one.
all right, we can
I
move
think
on.
JHS Media probably will have that. So
Yeah, that should be
yeah,
broadcasted.
so you should be able to
okay,
see it
so-
on the YouTube, just not on the SOSA YouTube.
Right. We can move on to another league matchup in the FAC. Hillsboro at Chillicothe. So Tate Davis, as well as was freshman, now sophomore guard. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Taking on a Chillicothe team that had a good showing against Warren. Did end up losing 72-69, but they are 1-2 on the season. Coming back, third team All Ohioan in Division One, I might add. Cooper Stone King, a lot of other good players coming back
Caden Cox
for
was
them
really
as well.
good
Caden
against Warren.
Cox, Juan Miller was a good player last year for them, but I have not seen them in person yet. But it's an up and coming Chillicothe team against a Hillsboro team that has league title aspirations this season. So Hillsboro at Chillicothe, what are we thinking?
So I think I was really high on this Hillsboro team. Was Jack Howland is the junior or the sophomore. So
And isn't Howland is the coach?
Yes,
Okay, I thought so.
yeah. So I was really high on this Hillsboro team. I watched them in a scrimmage with Unioto. I thought they looked really good. It was a pretty even matchup between the two. I thought their new big that came in from East Clinton looked good as well. But while I think Unioto is a good team, I think Warren has a chance to get to the Final Four, and Chillicothe was up 5 in the last minute at Warren. So because of that, I'm going to take Chillicothe.
Okay.
I just think Caden Cox creates some matchup nightmares. I think with Cooper Stone King, with the senior group that they have, I think they are very hungry, and especially at home. One of the biggest home court advantages in the Southeast District is Chillicothe.
Really? You think
Their
so?
student section is,
Okay.
I'm going to be honest, nasty. Like, they are not very nice. They are they are on top of you. They kind of let them do whatever, and they are nasty. When they bring the band in, it's a great home court advantage for them. It's not always consistent, but when they are there and they are amped up, and I think they will be amped up on Friday night, should make that a really fun atmosphere.
Okay. I think it's hard to pick against the reigning FAC Player of the Year.
I'm that.
An FAC, I don't think the FAC does first and second team. So an all
They just do like
FAC,
an all,
an all FAC selection. Jack Howland is a freshman coming back. It's hard not to pick them. I think that's who I'm going to go with. So I'll go with it. So we're actually both. So you're taking the away team at Jackson. I'm taking the away team at Chillicothe. But
So,
should be a
but
couple of big games. FAC, man,
Yeah.
they're showing out this Friday.
yeah, it's a big night, and you mentioned the SOAC Player of the Year and Tate Davis. Man, that dude can just flat out play.
I haven't
And
seen him in person, so
he's
we're gonna have to
he's
hope we maybe get
very
him this year.
very talented player. Great. He reminds me a lot of like a right-handed Brody Buchanan, and his ability to quickly pull up, his ability to shoot from different ranges and whatnot. Now he doesn't have that left to right crossover as quick as Buchanan does, but he's incredibly quick and can do it a little bit smaller version of what Buchanan can do.
All right, a couple actually just one non-conference game, both on Saturday. We'll start with the Waverly Tigers making the trip down to Latham, taking on the Western Indians.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
Like this is one
a
where
tough
like
one.
we had a different game earlier and then we were like, let's switch to this one. I have no idea. This is a Western team that when I watched them in a scrimmage, they looked bad, like bad. But then they go play a Peebles team that's going to be pretty strong, and they beat them pretty handily on Saturday. So they're a team that I can't really, I never can get a grasp on them because last year they finished 6-17. I thought they were better than 6-17,
Yeah.
but then they had some just like random losses. They lost to a Payne Valley team that wasn't very good last year.
This
You know,
is a tough one.
Yeah, because this is also a Waverly team that I had kind of high expectations for, and then Zane Trace just absolutely took them behind the woodshed on Saturday
At
night.
home.
Yeah,
in
at
Tiger
home in their
Town.
home opener. So
can a Waverly team coming off of obviously it would be a week removed at the time of this game, of a home loss, a double-digit home loss, go to Western and take down an Indian team that maybe is a favorite in the SOC 1? Going with the
Two.
Indians. Sorry, SOC 2.
Now, okay, so you also say you mentioned that,
I'm going with Western.
but think about this.
I think this
and
is.
I don't even know if like you may not even know this because you're younger. I couldn't tell you the last time Waverly played at Western. Last year was the first time Waverly played at Piketon in like 40 years.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine that they have played at Western maybe ever.
What?
Because they would have always played in Waverly, and at that up until that point, there was such a size difference in the schools, they maybe didn't.
Trivia question. What current Waverly coach once coached at Western? I'm not telling you this sport, obviously. Started his career at Western.
No idea.
Nobby.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I see. I think it was 8 years at Western to start it off. So there's your fun Tiger trivia.
That probably was the best the Western's ever been at baseball. But
I think even if Western goes like 6-15 or something, as weird of a team as they were last year, this is like if they go 6-15 this year or 6-17, you'll look back and say, how did they win that game? This is going to be one of those games.
So
I'm going with Western.
Oh,
but I still I think they're going to have a better season than that.
Here's
I think they're winning the SOC too.
I think the size advantage is Waverly.
Even with Janes and Haggie's pretty big.
No,
the
size advantage. Like, yeah, because they got the 6'4", the Myers twins. Like,
yeah, that is true.
You know, Landon Russell really tough. I know Cage Alexander had a nice debut. He had 11 points.
Yep,
but
freshman.
It's going to be 4 sophomores and a freshman starting going into probably the nastiest environment they'll ever play in.
Some guys that have played at the Convo and Elite 8 games.
Yeah. So, and then they're playing again in a place that
they're probably not very welcome.
Who isn't very welcome to people that aren't like there's literally old Chillicothe Gazette newspaper articles about like one local team going down there. Of course, the coach antagonized that, but still, that was how it used to be. But this is going to be a fired up Western team.
Yep.
When these two would play at the downtown gymnasium in the Holiday Classic when it was still a thing, Western would always hang with them.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're playing at home and they're fired up and they're playing a school that they probably thinks looks down on them. I'm going I kind of want to be different than you, but I'm going Western as well.
Yeah.
I just think with with Hagee, Janes, I don't know. I think maybe if Waverly looked better against St. Trace, but and if this game was at a neutral site, but I just think it's going to be such a hard atmosphere. Good job. Hard atmosphere for those young kids to play in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if I was picking this game without, the St. Trace game, I think I'd probably go with Waverly, but it's in terms of varsity playing experience and just basketball playing experience in general, I think Western definitely has the upper hand.
Yeah, and I'll use an example of my life. I was on a team that started 4 seniors and a junior against a Chillicothe team that started 3 sophomores in one of their first really tough road games, and we beat them, and we were horrible. That Western team was better than what we were. So I just think it's just a new experience. It's going to be, I kind of wish we could get to that one just because I do think that's going to be a wild crowd.
I'm not sure if there's a Western media or anything like that.
They used to have one, but
hopefully we can maybe get a coach's call in from them. I guess that'd be on Saturday. Yeah. So maybe not.
And plus, Coach Williams does a really good job. His staff does a really good job down there. I think Coach Bradley is getting what he wants going. With
he's taking a team that was 1-20 the year before he got there, 1-21 or something. So
it's going to take a little bit of time. They're still playing some really young kids. So, but if Waverly gets that win, I think they could have some good things going on with their season.
All right, the last game we're going to pick, MSL League matchup, Circleville at Logan Elm.
Circleville played well this week. Obviously, three wins.
After
Logan Elm
lost to ZT to open it up.
Yeah. Logan Elm has struggled as they're off to their 1-3 start, but they're at home in their tiny gym at 2:30 in the afternoon. I hate that 2:30 in the afternoon start. I get it, but you're going to get some really good officials though. I will say that, because if you're getting the early afternoon game, I think that in this one, I'm going to take the size of Circleville, but I do think Nehemiah Wall could really be a big issue overall for the, for the Tigers. So I'm going to take Circleville.
I think I'm going to take Logan Elm, not just to be different, but they're 1-3 and their losses are by 2, 6, and 2. I don't know how good Bexley is, so I'll just watch that one. They beat a 3-2 a 3-2 Washington Courthouse team that has a lot of junior talent, as well as Krzyzewski, who's a senior.
Just absolutely
beat them by 31 at home. Lost to Miami Trace, who looked dominant against Unioto by 6, and lost on the road at Jackson, who Jackson and Miami Trace, I'm presuming to be the top 2 teams in the FAC. Lost to them by 2 in overtime. This is a team that's obviously coming off the heels of a district tournament appearance last year. Really one of the better Cinderella stories in our area. I know Circleville obviously had the big win over Bloom Carroll this past Saturday or Friday. I don't remember exactly what day it was. Keep it short and simple, short and sweet. Going to go with the Braves this one. So
I'm good with that.
So rundown. Hopefully I have a graphic to put up on the screen at some point.
But it is 10:59 right now.
It is. So
this is coming out at 10.
So there might be a graphic coming out later this week. Maybe not on the episode, but the picks: Portsmouth and Chesapeake. We both take Chesapeake. Miami Trace at Jackson. John takes the Panthers. I take the Ironmen. Hillsboro and Chillicothe. John takes Chillicothe. I take Hillsboro. We both take Western in their match against Waverly. Then Circleville and Logan Elm. I take Logan Elm. He takes Circleville. So we actually only had 2 games that we picked the same team. So
Hey, one of us is going to be winning on the
yeah,
boys' side.
one of us is going to be up big.
I'm going to be up 5-2.
Up or 5-2.
Yeah, I'm going to get all.
Oh,
I'm going to
okay.
get all 5 of mine. You're going to miss the 3 that we're off on.
All right, and we're going to do the same with the girls at the end of their segment, which will be much shorter due to the fact that only 2 of the 12 games at the showcase this weekend are girls' games. Had to ramble through
and
10 boys games. So
yeah, so sorry, our girls segment will be more balanced next weekend. I'm guessing as
we are
well.
going to talk about 2 games and 1 team for the girls' side. And both of our headlines were also girls players, just to try and even it out as much as we could for this week. But a big one at Ohio Dominican last Sunday. The reigning state champs out of
runner-up.
Sorry, they won it 2 years ago.
3 years ago when those kids were freshmen.
The reigning state runner-ups from last season. Waterford, the Wildcats out of the TVC Hawking, taking down Unioto 62-57, the battle of the 614. There's actually 2 of those, I believe, coming up, including that one, so just 1 more. But a big win for the Wildcats over a really good Unioto team.
Yeah, and for Unioto, I would say maybe the biggest issue is out of their 7 games, literally 0 before yesterday were close. And so you could tell late that they weren't taking the smart shots. They got off to a slow start. Waterford got up by as much as 21-6 in the first quarter, but then also trailed 51-43 with 6:38 to play, called a timeout after a Kiera Beard 3 for Unioto made it an 8-point game. And then after that, it was all Waterford, a 19-6 close over the last 6:38. A lot of that was because of Avery Wagner, the 6'4" Purdue Fort Wayne commit, the future Mastodon, had 38 points and 15 rebounds. I'm not 100% sure that she missed a shot without getting a putback on it as well. She completely outclassed the Shermans in this one. Was outstanding throughout. She hit a 3 to start the game, and then after that, I think that really made it to where Unioto concentrated on not letting her shoot, so then she was able to drive and score inside. So she did a really good job. She also guarded Milee Smith a good bit of the game too once they went man. So Kendall Surrey also had 16 points for Waterford. The Marietta commit had a nice week as well in their other win over Federal Hawking. So
tough gauntlet week.
Yeah, really tough gauntlet week because Federal Hawking is one of the better Division 6 schools in the area, and Waterford in Division 7. So it should be those 2 teams out of the TVC Hawking are going to be outstanding. Now, for Unioto, they were led by Maya Hamilton. She had 24 points, 20 points for Milee Smith, who, as we mentioned, had scored her 1,000th point the night before. And then Kiera Beard had 8 points for them as well. So they only had 4 people score for Unioto. That's something that they're going to have to look at in the future. Also, one of the things was they were chucking it from beyond the men's, like deep beyond the men's 3-point line, because they had 3 lines there because they have the high school, then the women's line, and then the men's line, and they were shooting from even further back from behind the men's. So that's something that they'll have to look at next time they play at one of these showcase events. But really, Waterford, an outstanding week for them. And they're just, man, they are a very tough team. It was kind of fun because you saw some really good players guarding each other.
Right.
Now, Unioto didn't put Smith on Wagner very much. I think for me, I would have liked to have seen that, even though she's not going to guard bigs really at any point in her college career, whenever she goes and plays, but they just kind of needed her in that moment, and Wagner really, really played well. Our Derek Webb had pictures and wrote a story about that, so that's up on SOSAOhio.com. So if you check it out, he wrote a nice story about that game. So that was our first one. Our second girls game was Huntington 43 and Piketon 38. That one was played over in the township earlier this week, I believe on Wednesday. Thankfully, I was able to get to that and not watch that Ohio State Maryland game, because when I got there, it was the 50-17 score. I was like, oh, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm in the township. But yeah, for this game started as a little bit of a back and forth. Also, there's a story on SOSAOhio.com about it. written by yours truly, ya boy.
There you go.
Yeah. So Tori Smith was the big standout on the day for Huntington. She had 19 points. The junior guard really controlled the action. She hit a big three at the end of the first quarter and then just kind of helped them build their lead and then hold off the streaks at the end of the game. It was interesting because you saw Layla Kelly, who's the big scorer for Piketon. She was face guarding Allie Baker, who's the big scorer for Huntington, and she did a really good job of slowing her down. Held her to 11 points. She wasn't really getting a lot of shots off, and you could tell she was tired because she struggled at the free throw line where she's normally really good. But on the other end, it hurt Kelly because she only had 6 points, all of which came in the first half. So without her being able to score, they needed someone like an Abrielle Johnson who had 11 points. Reese Shanks had 9 off the bench. Um, Danny Ritchie had 9 rebounds for them. They out rebounded Huntington 35-17 in the game. So they were getting a ton of second shots, but they just weren't able to get them to fall. Braylee Hosworth, a freshman for Huntington, had 10 points in the game. She played pretty well, as well had a couple of assists. I think her assists were both to Baker on the backdoor cuts on their high ball screens or high post action that they like to run. It was a 1-point game with 7:14 to play. Johnson hit a three, and then Huntington went on a 7-1 run that really put the game away, highlighted by a 3-point play by Tori Smith with 5:07 to play. The lefty went driving, and the funny thing is left-handed heavy dribbler, but right-handed shooter. So she's going heavy left-handed drive, gets through around the paint, gets through contact with a right-handed floater and scored it. Made the free throw and helped put the game away. So it's a good game overall. Not great shooting, but it was a big win for Huntington to get their first win in SVC play. I'll have Piketon again, which we'll talk about at one of our games that we'll talk about.
Yep.
As one of our games to pick was they face Adina on Wednesday, and what should be a nice matchup in the SVC.
All right, we can move on to similar to what we did with Circleville boys in the boys segment. We're going to talk about one team that either had a good week or had maybe some records they broke. But
Or both.
yes, both. The Clay Panthers go 3-1 last week with a few wins led by 3 different players that were all in double digits. Coach Imnett obviously does a great job down there
Yeah.
for the Lady Panthers. Great week for Clay.
Yeah, the one of the wins was tonight. We're filming. It's 11:07 right now, but so we got the results in. We didn't throw I didn't throw the scoring from tonight in there with the averages from last week, but a big win over Felicity Franklin tonight. They beat Eastern Pike, and Hannon lost a tough one on the road to Southern, which if you saw the free throw disparity in that one, you kind of know what you're getting when you go on the road that far on the road in Southeast Ohio. So there's a reason why certain people get jobs consistently at places, and I don't blame them for it, honestly. But yeah, Clay goes 3-1 on the week. They've got games this week. They play Hannon in a home and home, so they should get a win on Thursday. Then they got Eastern Megs on Saturday, and then by the time we're going to be filming next week, they'll have played Western as well. So another 3 games that they definitely can win if they play well. They were led in scoring by Ava DeMorist with 14.7 points a game in the 3 games last week. Emma Imnett, 14 points, 9.4 assists a game, which is insane. But also, she had a school record of 12 assists in their win over Hannon the other day. So congrats to her. Anytime you can get double-digit assists, which she did later in the week also in that game against Southern, but anytime you can get double-digit assists in a game is a big thing, but also breaking a school record is great as well. And then Sophia Kraft had 13 points per game and 8.3 rebounds a game. The big ones we remember from last year when we talked about them were Kraft and Imnett, but DeMorris has stepped up and played well for them as they've gotten off to a pretty nice start for the Panthers. So shout out to them for a nice week, and then we'll be following along as well.
We can go ahead and talk about a couple of the only 2 girls
Yes.
games at the battle in the 740 this weekend at Shawnee State. One is on Saturday and one is on Sunday. The one on Saturday, I believe, is the
It's the
3:30,
6:30 game.
the 6:30 game. So it's the second to last
Yeah.
game on Saturday. It's Fairland taking on Ashland Blazer. Obviously, if you're new to the coverage area or new to area girls basketball, it was a Fairland Dragons team last year that made it back-to-back Final Fours. And for Ashland Blazer, really good year for them last year too.
Yeah,
So
the Tom Kittens, I think, or
I believe it's
Kittens.
just the Kittens.
Yeah,
Tom Kitties.
I don't know, but their boys team's the Tomcats. Girls team go by the Kittens in some way. So they went 26-7 last year. Now they were blown out last week by Portsmouth because they had a couple of injuries. I know their top player is out. She's going to be out an extended period of time, but the second player may be back for this game. Either way, this is one of the showcase games for the girls. Fairland is just, you know, Coach Buchanan. And when you hear Brody Buchanan, you hear Coach Buchanan. Well, that's Coach Buchanan's son. And you can see he's a coach's kid based on how he plays the game. So they're a well-coached team. They really shoot the ball well. Cameron Barnett's a senior who has, I believe she hit 5 threes in a quarter last week. Bailey Russell hit a bunch of threes in another game last week as well. She's a junior. Addison Godby, a junior. As we mentioned, they reached their second straight Final Four. These players have all played huge minutes. Barnett started on both teams. Godby and Russell started as sophomores last year, but played starter minutes when they were freshmen. So they are experienced, they are talented, they are very fun to watch. They get up and down, they spread the floor, they shoot the ball well. They have a variety of players that are filling into new spots on the year. So I'm excited to get to see them because they um, it's players playing new positions for them. Issa Telefaro is another one that has played some big minutes for them, especially last year. She played a little bit as a freshman, but even more as a sophomore. So she'll be another one that should be really good for them. So interested to see them. We'll see how the Kittens are, and just overall should be a fun game just because of the style that Fairland plays, to be able to get to see them in person for the first time this year.
And then the other girls' game coming up at the Battle in the 740 at Shawnee to kick off things on Sunday. I believe it is a 12:30 start.
It's at least 12, yeah.
It'll be Minford and Teays Valley. Obviously, Teays Valley coming out of used to be the MSL, now it's the OCC. Used to be Division 1, now I believe in Division 2 for the Vikings. Presumably a pretty solid program for them. Minford has had a lot of success the last year or two. Lindsey Williams going to get a lot of recognition. Obviously, the big inside for them. And I believe they're off to a pretty solid start to
Well,
begin the
they
year.
lost a couple of close ones
Have they?
early. They lost at Amanda and then to an Athens team at
Yeah.
home, and that was a game where they got off to a slow start and didn't shoot the ball very well.
Oh, they're 1-2
1-2, yeah.
to
So
start the year. Yep, losses to Amanda and Athens, but did take down North Adams tonight.
what was the score of that?
54-35.
Okay, so yeah, that was one where we kind of talked about like, oh, this one should be interesting. So that's a good win for them. That's not the easiest schedule to start the season because that's a really good Amanda team, and then that is a good, very good Athens team. That's going to be one of the better ones in their division.
And they are at Sims Valley on Thursday, so that would be kind of an interesting one to look at. Is Sims Valley
That's one of our games we're talking about.
It is one of the games we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
It has Sims Valley as 0-5, but I don't think that's correct for girls basketball. I didn't think.
Maybe.
Are they 0-5? I thought we just talked about them winning games the other way. Did we not talk about them beating?
That was South Gallia we talked about.
Oh, maybe it was South Gallia.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but yeah, we'll see about that one when it comes up. So
yeah, so this Minford team, they are, it was good for them to get a win. They played in that state semifinal in soccer, so it took them a little while to get going offensively. They have Lexi Conkle and Lexi Pendleton. You mentioned Lindsey Williams. Um, Maggie Reisner. They just have a variety of players that can. Marley Pendleton's another one. I can't think of Ava Cronin is
Yep.
the other one. And then Bailey Hammonds as well. So they've got a bunch of seniors, and they are a team that they're going to get off to a slow start because of who they're playing, but I think that they have a chance to have an outstanding season. Now, Teays Valley coming off of a season where they lost in a district championship game to a Pickerington team that eventually got to the Final Four. So it's an excellent program. I think it's going to be a really hard fought game. This is a Minford team that doesn't give up a lot of points. They seem to be scoring a little bit more than what they had in the past, so that could be a benefit for them in that tough 12:30 matchup on Sunday. And yeah, so I'm excited for this one just to get to see them in person. We had talked originally about possibly getting down and doing that Athens game, but you had it was going to be tough for you to get there.
Right.
And Derek Webb covered it at SOSA Ohio. Also on Facebook, Instagram, and X, there was an interview of that game on YouTube. So all four of those things. Yeah.
There you
So
go.
yeah, it's a new banner. We don't have the old one. We
Right.
need to get the old one and take the games and tape it up, and hopefully it doesn't fall down and stuff. But yeah, so this one should be a good one on Sunday. Looking forward to seeing them in person. Hopefully they're good and healthy after that long tournament run in soccer. So doing something that no one in Southeast Ohio had ever done, which is score a goal in the state semifinals, which was Maggie Reisner. So should be exciting to see them.
All right, we can go ahead and round out this week's episode.
No, just in general, talk about the games to watch.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll just skip over the ones that we're going to pick. Thursday, Eastern Brown at West Union should be interesting. West Union, the state and girl, they've gotten off to a nice start. Eastern Brown just beat Lynchburg 30-29 tonight. So maybe not the most high scoring game, but you're going to see some really good defense and some hard fought play. Lynchburg at Fayetteville, that one will be interesting just because Fayetteville appears to be off to a really good start. Those games are on Thursday. On Friday, you got Circleville at Hamilton Township is one to watch. Saturday, Hillsboro at Miami Trace, North Adams at Eastern Brown, those two as well. So, and then our games to pick. Are you ready?
Let me pull. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
So I'll just talk about the first one. On Wednesday, Piketon at Adina. I will be at that game, but Piketon with Layla Kelly, Jalen Forbes, Reese Shanks, Abriel Johnson. They've got some different players that can do some good things offensively. Danny Ritchie rebounds at a really high clip. They've got some good size as well. So Hayden Daniels is one. Olivia Farmer is another one. Adina really only playing 6 players at this point. They're playing the Farrell sisters, Ava and Olivia. Both have had nice games. JC Smith has continued to play well from volleyball season into basketball. Corinne Day, Marley Halcom's their big scorer. Day's played well so far. Cameron Sowers. They've got some nice pieces, and they're a team that they've gotten off to a nice start. They lost substantially to Unioto, but that's going to happen. This game is at Adina. It's going to be in the Village. I think it's the matchup of the villages because I think Piketon kind of talks about.
I think Piketon is a village as well.
So it'll be in Frankfort. Should be a good matchup. Excited to see two coaching staffs kind of throw out their best shots in this one. I thought what Piketon did against Huntington was a really good strategy, and that one gave them a chance late. This one should be fun.
You got to shout out the segment,
huh?
Yeah, so you got to shout out the segment.
I don't remember what you said it was called.
All right. These are our girls' quick picks powered by Views Gym.
We're going to have to write it on this sign. Put it on the back of the sign and I can read it.
Quick picks powered by Views Gym. Piketon at Adina in Frankfurt. I'm going to go with the Warriors.
I'm also going to take the Warriors, but I think this will be a tight game. I think with the ability that Piketon has to shoot the ball, I think we'll keep them in the game. But this is an Adina team that, in that game against Huntington, I had them a couple weeks ago. When they had to, they could really run some clock. It's going to be interesting. Marley Halcomb hasn't had a huge game yet. I could see this being the start to that as a sophomore for her. Because that was her first really big game as a freshman last year was at Piketon, which you can watch that back on YouTube where we had that game.
All right, just give me a second. I'm trying to. I just wanted to let you know I beat you by
You beat
0.4,
me?
0.44.
You beat me.
I beat you by point. You don't have Jamar Chase in that league.
Yeah, but still, do you have Jamar Chase in that league?
No, but I have Rico Dowdle who scored 17, and you have Jake Ferguson who scored 6. So,
I thought it was up by more than that.
well, yeah, you had Josh Allen. I mean, you didn't need to win, but I did to make the playoffs. So,
Am I
thank
gonna
you.
have to play you next week?
I don't know.
Because I
Probably not.
prefer not to.
All right, we can move on to the next quick pick. Minford.
Man, I wanted to buy.
I'm sorry.
I hate you so much.
I'm gonna get into the playoffs. I think at 6-8 or 7-7, maybe.
That's a bad league.
It is a very bad league. All right.
Shout out Sosa.
SOSA 3. What's?
Oh, we're not. We don't need to say.
I don't remember what it's called. Anyway, we can move on to the second game. Minford at Sims Valley. As we talked about, Minford 1-2 to start the year, but coming off of a win against North Adams. And Sims Valley 0-5 to begin the year. They did play Notre Dame fairly tightly,
Yeah.
losing 53-50. I think maybe that's what I was thinking of. But before that, I mean, 62-30 loss against South Point, 71-44 to Ironton, 42-35 loss to Colgrove,
That Notre Dame was weird.
and a 49-37 loss to Chesapeake. They have Glenwood on. Oh, actually, I guess they don't have they don't have New Boston because it's on the same day as the Minford game. So I'm just going to chalk that one up as Max Prep's not totally being correct. Regardless, Sims Valley winless on the year. I don't see that starting with Minford. So I'm going to go with the Falcons. If that game is being
I'm
played.
going to go with the Falcons also. Let's pick a secondary. Let's pick one. Let's go Eastern Brown and West Union just as a backup.
Okay, I'll go with West Union.
I'm going to go Eastern Brown just to go different. Even though this game might not matter.
Okay,
that's our sixth.
You better hope it doesn't because you just lost if it does.
Yeah, it's all right.
But
I'm taking Coach
obviously,
Pickrell.
Yeah, I was going to say Coach Pickrell does a really good job at Eastern Brown. Another game on Friday, Amanda Clear Creek at Logan Elm.
Man, this is, I know Logan Elm has been pretty beat up. So are they getting back to full strength? You have Kiki Ingram that's unreal. So that's helped them in a couple games. They beat Jackson tonight. This is an Amanda team that has gotten off to how good a start? 4-2, 3-2, 3-2. Okay, so it's an Amanda team that's played well. Ingram has shot the ball really well. Kimmy Petty's done a nice job for them as well. I'm still going to take the Aces on the road, but I do think that if Logan Elm's going to get them, it will be that night.
This is a tough one. We saw Amanda last year and they didn't look great.
But they were very injured.
Correct.
Which is kind of what Logan Elm was when I saw them earlier this year.
So Fairfield Union. Yeah, I'm going to go with Amanda as well. I think that's the pick. Wait, who did you pick?
I took Amanda.
Okay, so we're both picking Amanda for Amanda and Logan Elm.
Yeah. So then our next one is Fairfield Union at Waverly. Waverly played McLean really tight tonight. I can't really get a read. I know Christian Thompson didn't play last year, and that made a gigantic difference for them. But she's had a great start for Fairfield Union so far. The Martindale girl has also played really well for them. This being at Waverly, up on the hill, not downtown, up on the hill. I love that gym. Waverly.
They have two sweet gyms.
Yeah. So
they're very blessed with facilities.
In this one, I'm going to take Waverly at home.
All right.
It's a long trip. It's a big gym. It's a big old gym.
It is a very big gym.
I think Coach Bonnefeld does a nice job. His name was on the board. Was it on the board when we got here, or is it?
No, his was already erased, I believe. Yeah, I'm gonna take Fairfield Union.
Yeah. That's cool.
And then the last game, we're gonna talk about George Rogers Clark at Portsmouth this Saturday.
So Portsmouth, I don't know about their schedule so far. They've tried really hard to up that schedule where they started with Springfield, who was an under 500 team last year, but they're Division One, so they play really tough teams. Then they played Blazer, who was down 2 players, so you can't really tell. Then they had the Laurel School, whose best player transferred to the number 1 team in the country right before the season.
Florida.
Yeah, and she's a top 5 player in the junior class. So they went from having maybe 3 just monster games to start to 2 games that weren't really that close. Now, the Laurel School still I keep spitting all over this. I'm sorry, Coach Hoops, in advance for this, but the Laurel School played them tough, and they still had a lot of really talented players coming back from last year. This could be the first, like, super tough challenge for Portsmouth. George Rogers Clark finished number 2 on the Max Preps rankings last year. In Kentucky, they lost, kinda early in the tournament, had a really nice season. I think they lost in that Sweet 16 round as well, but they had a really nice season as well. So this is gonna be a really tough matchup for Portsmouth. It's in Portsmouth. They're coming up from the Lexington area, so it's not a short trip. I think Kiki Woods is going to continue to just pound teams. This is a Portsmouth team that is very talented, and they've gotten off to a really good start. Seems like they're playing very well. Um, I think that they are. If we did power rankings powered by Views Gym, I think that we would likely there's a decent chance that we would have Portsmouth as our number ones
Yeah.
across the board. So I'm going to take Portsmouth in this one.
Okay.
I think even though that that George Rogers Clark team coming in, and one of the teams that Portsmouth lost to last year was
How many games do you think they won last year?
31.
30.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna
30
say,
and 5.
yeah. So, and I think it was a Pikeville team that Portsmouth lost to last year, and I think that they want to keep away from something similar to that happening. So I'm going to take Portsmouth. I think Sienna Allen is going to have a big game as well.
I really want to go against you just so we have some differences, but like, man, George Rogers Clark lost to Ashland Blazer last year in overtime. And I think Portsmouth was way better than Ashland Blazer last year. And I think they're
Yeah.
way better than Ashland Blazer this year. So I want to pick different than you, but I also just don't want to forfeit
Well, we have one different.
a game. So I think I'm going to have to go with Portsmouth as well. So just a quick recap of the quick picks powered by Views Gym. Piketon and Adena, we both took Adena. Minford and Sims Valley, we both took Minford. Amanda Clear Creek at Logan Elm, we both take Amanda. Fairfield Union at Waverly, I take the Falcons. John takes the Tigers. And George Rogers Clark taking on Portsmouth, we both roll with the Trojans. I believe we have 4 total differences, so a chance for somebody to go up 4 in a miraculous 10-0 effort.
The schedule I got from the athletic director at Minford has that Minford at Sims Valley game on there, so I'm going to just assume that is. But if not, if we got to go Eastern Brown and West Union, Dewdog took West Union, I took Eastern Brown, so that's our bonus extra pick that maybe doesn't matter.
All right. Well, first episode here in the new studio, long one.
We were here for like 5 hours.
We were here for quite a while, so
had to figure out how things worked. He had to get some hibachi.
I did get some hibachi. It was very yummy.
You got to bring some drinks next time.
I know. We're gonna have to stock this place up with some waters.
Yeah, because this is.
I just had to drink sink water, and not to sound privileged, but it wasn't great. So
yeah. Also, there's not really a gas station by, even though we're in beautiful, historic downtown Chillicothe. You still, there's not really a walking.
No, there's not a mini mart anywhere around here. So
yeah, there was, and then I think it closed within like
the HD Mart.
No, not the HD Mart. No, there was one down the road. It was, I don't remember, but it wasn't open very long. That's all I know. It wasn't open long. So.
I mean, the closest would be like the Speedway down by like Crispy and McDonald's, maybe.
Yeah, which will probably both close. Definitely both close.
No,
at
they're
11,
open. I think aren't they open late?
Who?
The Speedways.
Oh, Speedway is. I was talking about the other
What
two.
did I say? Oh, the
McDonald's and
McDonald's.
Crispy.
Yeah. All right. I think that'll wrap it up. Unless you
Are
have
you making donuts tomorrow?
anything. No. I'm going
Attaboy.
to Columbus. Christmas shopping with my
Ooh.
grandparents.
Yay! Buy me anything? Thanks. I appreciate it in advance.
All right. Episode 55 in the books. We'll be back next Tuesday for episode 56. Probably going to recap not all, but a lot of the
good ones.
battle.
if like 8 of them are blowouts, you ain't hearing about 8 of those.
Yeah,
Like, maybe we'll say the score, but
we spent a lot of time previewing them, and we didn't talk about anything else. We were here for a while, so
yeah, let's pray that they're good.
All right, that'll wrap it up. John Bruce, Dewey Dailey, episode 55, once again in the books. And that'll wrap it up for this week's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by Perfection One.